Thank you for taking some time for yourself. Many people notice that the day finally quiets down and something else begins. Parents often describe that moment when the house is still, kids asleep, dishes done, lights off. The body feels tired, sometimes deeply tired, and yet the mind becomes active. Some people notice themselves replaying something they said earlier, or something they wish they had said differently. Others find themselves wondering whether they handled the day the right way, or whether tomorrow needs more preparation. Without intending to, planning begins. Tomorrow's schedule, backup plans, what might need attention next. Many parents quietly realize that bedtime has become the first uninterrupted thinking time they've had all day. Tradespeople often notice something similar, though it shows up a little differently. Electricians, carpenters, mechanics, construction workers, after a physically demanding day, the body is exhausted, sometimes sore, sometimes heavy, and yet lying in bed, the mind starts reviewing. Did that measurement line up? Did I torque that bolt enough? Should have I done that part differently? Some notice themselves mentally replaying a job site, running through steps again, or anticipating what tomorrow's work will require. The body wants rest. The mind is still solving. Professionals notice it too. Lawyers, engineers, managers, clinicians, business owners, they lie down intending to sleep instead of the mind. And instead, the mind begins refining, rewriting emails, rehearsing meetings, improving arguments that have already happened. They often say they don't feel anxious, they feel productive. Thoughts like, I should have said it this way. Tomorrow I'll lead with that point. And even without worry, sleep doesn't arrive, because the brain is still in performance mode. Students recognize this pattern as well. High school students, college students, graduate students, they finally stop studying, close the laptop, turn off the light, and suddenly the mind starts reviewing. Did I understand that concept? What if that's on the test? What if I blank tomorrow? Some notice their mind jumping ahead, imagining questions, rehearsing answers, or replaying classroom moments. And even when the body feels tired, the mind stays alert. Many people across all of these roles notice how easily the phone becomes involved. They intend to wind down, to relax, and instead they scroll news headlines, political tension, other people's lives. Many describe feeling heavier afterward, more alert, more stirred, less ready for rest. Sleep clinics often hear people say, "I was exhausted until I looked at my phone." And it's not obvious at first, but the brain treats scrolling as information gathering, not rest. Others notice their mind replaying conversations, something that happened earlier, a moment that felt unresolved, feedback that lingered. They imagine how it should have gone, or how the next interaction might unfold. And the loop continues, quietly, persistently, until frustration turns into alertness, and alertness turns into wakefulness, not because the mind wants to stay awake, but because it's trying to resolve uncertainty. And many people also recognize the familiar "just one more thing" moment as the lights go out. And suddenly a thought appears. I should remember to do that. I can't forget this. Let me just go over tomorrow once. And what starts as one thought turns into a list. Time pressure appears. The body becomes more alert. People often say, "If I don't think about it now, I'll forget." And without meaning to, the bed becomes a planning desk. Some people notice this most clearly when they wake in the middle of the night, 3 or 4 in the morning. Within seconds, a familiar problem appears. Not a new one they already know well. The mind seems to say, "Since you're awake anyway," and sleep disappears much faster than it does during the day. Many people try to solve this by fixing sleep itself. They stop caffeine. They darken the room. They keep a schedule. And still, they lie awake. Because while the body is ready for sleep, the mind is still working. And many people feel relief when they finally realize nothing is wrong with them. Their brain has simply learned to think at night. And as many people begin to notice this pattern, they often realize something else as well. That the thinking doesn't stay where it starts. Once the mind begins reviewing or planning, naturally moves forward from what happened today to what tomorrow might require, from one unfinished thought to the next implication. And as attention drifts ahead, the body responds now. Some people become aware without trying of changes in breathing, a subtle tightening or a sense of alertness returning, and it often becomes clear that the mind is not trying to disturb sleep. It's doing what it has learned to do: solving, preparing, optimizing. And because thinking tends to lead to more thinking, the system becomes more engaged, not less. And simply noticing that forward movement from present moment to later on often slows it, not by force, but by awareness. And in that slowing, many people begin to notice something new. Not the content of their thoughts, but what follows them. They notice how engaging a thought changes the body, how planning increases alertness, how problem solving sharpens attention, how rehearsing tomorrow moves sleep further away, and as those patterns become clearer, attention often shifts naturally from what the mind is thinking to what thinking does. Perfect. Some people find themselves curious about what happens when a thought's allowed to pass, or what changes when attention resets on sensation instead. And without effort, the mind begins to experiment, following a thought, letting one go, noticing the difference. And as consequence becomes obvious, the urge to continue thinking often eases on its own, because the mind learns quickly from experience and clarity rather than control begins to guide the system toward rest. And as that clarity continues to develop, many people begin to notice thinking does not have to be taken at face value. A thought can arise. At the same time, another perspective can quietly appear. Some people notice that the same thought can be viewed in more than one way, noticing how a statement could be interpreted differently, how an action might look from a calmer time or from a wider distance, and without effort, the mind often begins allowing more than one level of understanding to exist at the same time. And when thinking becomes layered rather than absolute, urgency tends to soften, because flexibility feels different to the nervous system than certainty. And with that flexibility present, many people notice that decisions begin reorganizing themselves almost automatically. Some discover that the mind starts reorganizing, whether continuing to think feels satisfying or whether pausing creates more ease. Others notice that sometimes a gentle compromise appears naturally, while at other times there's no real need to comply with the thought at all. And instead of forcing a choice, the system selects, proceeding when it fits, pausing when it doesn't, letting go when nothing is required. And the body often responds with a subtle release when a choice is made deliberately. And now, many people notice that something interesting can happen without effort. Can feel as though your awareness steps back slightly, just enough to notice thoughts and sensations. Some people imagine they are still here, and at the same time they are observing from a comfortable distance, almost like floating above the experience, watching it happen without being inside. Some people notice it feels as though those thoughts are being projected onto a screen, a television across the room, images moving, scenes changing. You don't need to follow the story, and you don't need to interact with the screen. You can simply notice. Some people enjoy imagining that certain thoughts are gently beamed away, just sent elsewhere, perhaps drifting upward out beyond the building, maybe even far enough that the time they reach somewhere like Mars, they're no longer relevant. And meanwhile, your awareness remains here, steady, grounded, clear. Feelings can exist without needing to be resolved. Thoughts can move without needing to be completed. And as attention shifts from what is loud to what is directional, intensity often fades naturally. Not because anything is pushed away, but because it's no longer in the driver's seat. Clarity, quiet, spacious clarity becomes the guide. At this point, many people naturally experience a sense of quiet recognition, noticing the ability to pause, to choose, to respond deliberately. The nervous system responds well to being recognized for skillful choice. So some people notice a subtle internal yes of appreciation for doing something differently. And each time this is noticed, the pathway strengthens. Many people discover that this process is not limited to bedtime. It applies whenever thinking escalates, whenever attention races ahead, whenever the mind begins rehearsing, the same sequence becomes available. Noticing, pausing, recognizing consequence, allowing choice. And because it is simple, it transfers easily. The mind remembers. And now, nothing more needs to be done. No decisions. No observations. No effort. Many people notice that when thinking is no longer required, attention naturally begins drifting. Sensations become softer. Boundaries become less distinct. Thoughts may fragment or fade, or simply stop forming altogether. And whether you notice that happening or not, sleep often arrives in its own way and at its own pace, almost as if the mind knows exactly when to let go. And that's fine. That's enough. You don't need to notice anything else. You are perfect just as you are.